Hi guys, welcome to this video which is going to be looking at types of polymers. Now you've probably done a bit of an introduction to polymers already, okay? But today I'm going to be looking at thermoplastic versus thermoset polymers, which are the two main types of polymers. So don't get confused about how polymers are made, because that's a little bit different. So polymers can either be made via addition polymerization or condensation polymerization, okay? So those are how you make polymers, but then the polymers that you make fall into one of two categories, either a thermoplastic or a thermoset polymer. Now, thermoplastic polymers are ones that are recyclable. So this is my interpretation or attempt at the recycling symbol. Please don't judge my art abilities, all right? Whereas thermoset polymers char when you heat them, so they can't be recycled, all right? So it's really important that you remember that when you try to melt thermoset polymers, they actually just turn black. You're breaking it down into the carbon constituents, so it goes black, it chars, and you can't recycle them. So thermoplastic polymers, and I've talked about this before in other videos, is that when you're thinking about polymers for my students, I say to think of it a bit like a spaghetti bowl, okay? So you've got these individual strands like this, okay? So with a thermoplastic polymer, you have no crosslinks, okay? No crosslinks. What you have sometimes is that you might actually have branches which come off of the chains themselves, okay? So these are side chains which come off the chains, but they don't actually link the chains together, okay? Really good example of this is high density and low density polyethylene, okay? So HDPE and low DPE. And so a good example of this is these are the cling wrap that you use over food, and they're also Ziploc sandwich bags. Okay, so the high density polyethylene is the one that has very little side chains, and so the chains are close together, and so they've got lots of secondary bonds holding them together. Whereas low density polyethylene has lots of these side chains, they're spread apart a bit more, okay, and so it's a lighter, more flexible material, which is your cling wrap. Now they are both thermoplastic polymers. What that means is that when you heat these, okay, the chains separate. Okay, so heating, the chains separate. And what that means is that you can actually then remold it into a different shape. So when this melts, it all becomes very liquid, all right, and you can melt it into a different shape and form. So that's a thermoplastic polymer. A thermoset polymer, on the other hand, is one that is a little bit different. So a thermoset polymer, we still have these long chains like this, okay, but in a thermoset polymer, where we just had these side chains before, in a thermoset polymer we actually have crosslinks. Now there is a separate video about properties of polymers, which you can have a look at, and I talk about these crosslinks, okay, but we actually join the chains together. So what that means is that makes these a lot more rigid, okay? So we have in this one crosslinks. Now what that means is that these can't be recycled. So when you heat this, okay, when you heat it, it basically means it just breaks down. So it doesn't go runny, you can't remold it, okay, so you can't recycle. All you do is, so if you've ever melted a plastic and it just starts going black, that's called charring. That means it's a thermoset polymer, okay. Now these generally tend to be slightly stronger, have a little bit higher melting points, okay, but they can't be recycled, so that's the downside of them. So you need to weigh up what you're trying to use your polymer for, okay, what sort of properties you need, and then you'll work out, do you want it to be able to be recycled in? And obviously in a sustainable world, what we're trying to go for is as much thermoplastic as we can, all right, as many polymers that can be recycled and reused as much as we can. All right, so hopefully this has been a good introduction and just explanation of the different types of polymers. Thermoplastic ones, which have no crosslinks, all right, they go runny when heated and they can be remolded into other shapes, which means they're recyclable. And then we've got thermoset polymers, which have crosslinks between the chains, so when you heat them, they go black and char and they can't be recycled. All right, hopefully this has been straightforward. If you've got any questions, just ask and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, guys.